I like the way that you break things down.
Right. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, and it helps a lot.
I really have to thank you for that because I wouldn't be where I am now with him if it wasn't for you.
Sick of sacrificing or settling in your romantic life? Welcome to Make Him Wonder with Coach Paula Grooms, where women struggling in real relationships ask the expert. Unscripted, unfiltered, understandable coaching conversations to help passionate women succeed in love.
Hi there, and thanks for joining us today on the Make Him Wonder podcast. I'm your host, Coach Paula, a dating and relationship coach, licensed social worker, and author of the book, Why Won't He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One. Each episode, I talk with one real live woman with a real life relationship problem or concern or question in real time, meaning it's going on right now. And today's guest I want to welcome is Norah. Norah is in a relationship with Todd, and this is going to be a little different because Norah and I actually work together. Hi, Norah.
Hi, Paula.
Good to talk to you. Thank you for doing this today.
Good to be here.
Thank you. And in full disclosure, you came to me for my GPS program because I want to let you actually describe it. You and Todd were going through some difficulties, kind of being in a relationship for a year or more, and wanting to get commitment.
Correct. Yes.
Great. So, give us a little background on that. You are, kind of your ages, station in life, and that you were kind of ready to move forward in this relationship, and Todd was dragging his heels.
Right. So we are both in our mid to late 40s. We're a few years apart, and we had been dating for about, I believe, a year. When you and I connected, and we had talked about long-term stuff very minimally. So in the moment, everything was great, but there were a lot of questions in my head as to how things would progress. And then some life circumstances kind of arose that made me question them more with his job and him relocating. And I didn't know what that looked like for us. And I was very uncomfortable with the situation. And that's when I sought you out.
Cool. And at that time, you pretty much knew you were ready to, move forward and make a formal commitment if he would.
I think I was. I think I was a little bit hesitant. I think I was hesitant because of the uncertainty that was being created. So had I knew he was certain, I think I would have felt that the answer would be yes. But I wasn't certain.
Okay. And, now I remember because it's been about probably, 6 weeks, 8 weeks we've been working together now, and a lot has happened.
It has.
Yeah. So now I remember at the time, and it's funny because this happens a lot, when I work with someone, is that, I hear the scenario, I hear a woman talk about herself, her man, the relationship, whatever, and I never had any doubt for you that he was fully in.
Right.
Do you remember? But I remember you having some doubt and questioning. Yeah.
I did. Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it? But I never had any doubt, and it's because I go by a combination of what he is doing and saying, and it's always interesting to me that and it's the human condition. We all can't see the forest for the trees to some degree, right? And somebody else is able to see it. So, it's absolutely understandable. So we kind of move forward through, if you'll tell us about, the trajectory for you, because I want to hear, too, how you were experiencing the whole process.
The problem I was having, and I understood why you didn't have any question, and I also understood why I did. So the problem for me was the actions were all there. He was extremely consistent with his actions. I never had a question about that, but I've also never experienced so few words to accompany those actions. So although I believe actions are more important, I needed a little bit of communication to go along with that. So I knew he was happy in the present. I knew he had occasionally vaguely said things about the future, nothing specific. If he used the word marriage, it was not about us. It was general. I don't think he had ever really used the word engagement except for to say he wasn't ready. So there were no words to give me an idea of in his head where he was headed. So although things seemed great, I was left wondering because I've never, like I said, in any previous relationships, this was never the case. So I could understand from how on the outside looking in, it looked solid. His actions have always been consistent, but there was something missing for me. And that was, I want to spend my life with you. He would say things like, my life is much better with you than without you. I know I love you. But there was no future talk, hardly any future talk, I should say. And that made me wonder.
And as women, we hate wondering. We love to know.
No, don't like wondering. No.
None of us do, yes. It's so funny that men love through wondering because it works like a charm. So because I know the outcome and that the outcome is so amazing, and you're so great at explaining. So tell the story from your perspective of what kind of transpired through these last 6 weeks.
Well, a lot has transpired. So when I found you, I was totally uncertain. I was feeling like I wanted to pace the relationship, but was not doing that at all. I felt like the ball was completely in his court as far as our future was concerned, and that made me highly uncomfortable. So
that's so interesting because I have to say though, Norah, because when I talked to you, you were doing so many things right. It's funny that you didn't feel.
But yet I still felt like I was kind of at his mercy completely as far as where we were going. And he's, I think we've agreed, highly alpha and used to kind of having things on his timetable coinciding with events in his life. And how that works for him. And I kind of felt a little bit like an outsider to all of this. What about me? And, my life moves on too while all this is going on, by the way. So I was really uncomfortable. You were saying, here we have a buyer and not a consumer and kind of, cool your jets.
I forget, did you take the consumer versus buyer relationship test on him at the time?
I did.
What did he come up as?
89.
Okay, so he was a kind of a mid-range to high perspective buyer.
He was like on the cusp of buyerness, right?
Actually, yeah. I forget when the numbers come up. I have to look at the numbers, but he was definitely a prospective buyer, which is for anybody listening. And I'll explain just really, really briefly. The consumer versus buyer concept I have is that men live in two states of being. They're either ready, willing, and able to commit according to a set of criteria that they have to kind of fill before becoming a buyer. And if they're not a buyer, they're a consumer. And why I call consumer is because when they're not in the state of being a buyer, they're not shopping. And in other words, they're just consuming. And they have no thought about becoming a buyer. And the two consumer states are the ultimate consumer. The next is the mixed messages consumer. then there's prospective buyer, and then there's bona fide buyer. And so now I kind of understand, Norah, because you were feeling him as he's the score of 60 to 90 is the prospective buyer. So he was a high prospective buyer on the cusp of becoming a bona fide buyer. So I understand then why you kind of felt, I'm still not getting the full meal deal here. I'm still not feeling, and there's still questions. So I get that given his state and what he was scoring.
Yeah. That's kind of where he was. And I felt I was getting kind of mixed messages. So mixed messages, but quiet mixed messages, not audible mixed messages. So because his actions were so consistent and the verbal portion of it was almost non-existent.
Yes, but here I want to, if I can, just interject too. I think it is why I was completely confident in it and had no question. Because men live via their actions. Women live via verbalization. So actions for him, and maybe it's why, in our vernacular we say actions speak louder than words, but men absolutely that. Because men don't do anything that they don't want to do vis-a-vis women, and they also show women more than tell them. Now, of course, it's all on a scale because some men are more verbal than others, but the things I was hearing that he was telling you, and because he did score as a very high prospective buyer, I didn't feel those messages were mixed, although I completely understand why you felt that they were because of the different things. So it's just really fascinating how that always like that objective perspective is very different than a subjective experience.
Right. Yeah. And I did feel some hesitancy on his part. So in addition to his actions, which were great, I felt there was a bit of a wall up. And when we talked, I came to find out there was. So the intuition there, I think, was spot on. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew there was a bit of an issue. And when we finally did talk, because he's willing to talk, but it's a little bit like pulling teeth. Right. And he does say, he has made the comment before that when he's ready to execute something, he executes it without a lot of forewarning sometimes. So it was kind of like, well, this is my life too. I love surprises, but this one doesn't sound so great. And, as we moved forward, I just felt some hesitancy on his part. And like he was in, but not all in. Okay. And so as we started working together, and you were pretty certain, and I was not. And we had a conversation, he and I had a conversation eventually, and because, we had all of these variables going on with him potentially relocating for his job. And I didn't know what that meant for us as a couple because we hadn't discussed it. And per your book, we know that his station in life, he didn't have the stability that he needed to move forward with a commitment at that time. And he remember I told you, I said he could have written your book. It was like an autobiography about him. Oh, that's so funny. The parts of it definitely. So it definitely paralleled exactly what he was saying. And that was, look, I have to get X, Y, and Z in order before I can take on someone else in my life permanently.
Exactly, right? Yep.
So as a female, I think, because although I read your book, I still was having a little trouble, swallowing that pill.
Exactly,
I'm thinking,
right?
Well, if you want me in your life, you'll do whatever it takes because I'm a female.
Yes.
That's how we like to think, right?
Absolutely.
So you drilled into my head that I was wrong.
Oh.
And
you really, you have to give yourself credit, though. You were really, and it's one of the things I really love about you is that you do the work. You really do it, and you're serious about it. And that's, who I love to work with because you wanted to get you open your mind to some, while you knew the concepts were sound and were real, you really took them in vis-a-vis your own relationship and situation and worked the steps, so to speak. And you really did it well. So you have to give yourself a lot of kudos for that. And for where you are now.
Thank you. I do know that I don't know what I don't know, so I try to remember that. And he was mimicking exactly what you were saying. I mean, the two of you were like two parrots. So I'm saying, okay, he's saying exactly what Paula is saying. So they can't both be wrong. And I totally trusted you anyway. And the fact that he was just reiterating it drove that point home even more so. So he was saying this, so I finally said, okay, that's fine. But then you might recall, I felt kind of conflicted because here I am being his biggest cheerleader about getting the role he wants and relocating, but on the flip side of that, not knowing what that meant for us as a couple. So I started feeling extraordinarily conflicted with that dynamic, saying, okay, this could be the end of us. And if this is going to be the end of us, okay, I'm accepting of that. I'm not, if someone doesn't want me in their life, I'm accepting of that, but it's really hard for me to cheer you on knowing that this might be the end of us.
Right, and you were feeling, you knew in your gut, as women do, about his love for you. And that's the thing, that is so confounding for us as women, is that, and that's one of the things I really hit on in the book, is that the love is, you feel it, and he loves you and wants to be with you, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense, like logical sense. And and it's because love is only one, and being in love even is only one of the 5 criteria they must meet in order to be a bona fide buyer and be ready for commitment, vis-a-vis formal commitment, because they see it as a responsibility. And that's the main, and you know what? And I love that about men, and I want women to love that about men, because they take formal commitment very seriously. Good men do. Good men take it very seriously in terms of they're making that decision to commit, which men live by their decisions. They're going to live up to their decisions, and they are going to take on a commitment as a responsibility that they don't just shirk when they don't much feel like it anymore. And that's a beautiful thing about men that we cannot be angry about, but really revere in good men and say, thank goodness they take it so seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
I've learned that.
So continue with your telling us the trajectory of this, because it wasn't linear. It's never like...
No, it wasn't.
Right? Yeah. It's like a little bit
it was hardly linear. It looked like a heart attack probably on an ECG. But so when we came together, it was you and I. It was that he was, looking at relocating. I was very uncomfortable with that because I didn't know what it meant. And I had told you, I made it very clear to him that I would not relocate without commitment. There was absolutely no way I was going to do that. And then I took it.
Key. Very on track with you on that, because it's just so important. Yeah.
But then I took it a step further. I was a bit of an extremist, I guess, and said that not only would I not do that, but he said if he went somewhere else, he would come back every weekend. And I said, no. I said, I'm not willing to have a long-distance relationship And that was for a couple reasons. A, I'm not a fan of them. I've never really been in a full-fledged one, and I didn't want to change that. And B, I felt like we've been together long enough that if you knew you wanted to be with me, this would not be the conversation we'd be having.
And you're
said,
so smart. You're so smart. Sorry to interrupt you. You're so smart because the statistics on long-term relationships, long-distance relationships, is that, and even though millions of people are now in them, it's very interesting if you look up the statistics on long-distance relationships, that they tend to fail within 4.5 months.
Wow. Yeah,
So
it's a dynamic
smart.
It's a dynamic I'm not happy with, and my perspective has always been that if a guy can't find someone within like 3 hours of him, what's wrong with him?
Kind of true. It's very true. Yeah.
I mean, these kind of cross-continental relationships, I'm like, you can't find someone on the same continent as me?
I know,
right? And then there's, what I think is this kind of fictitious intimacy created, and it's just never been for me. But in our situation, we already knew each other. So I was like, look, if you're looking and willing and wanting to move without me, that's okay. But just know, I'm not coming.
Exactly.
So it was like, the expression, which I don't want to say in curse right now, but bleep or get off the pot time.
Exactly.
And I didn't want to give him an ultimatum. I'm not an ultimatum person, and I don't want anyone feeling like their arm is twisted to be with me. If they don't want to be with me, there's the door.
That's right.
So we got to this dynamic that you and I spoke about, where he said one day, he and I were talking, and he actually said, I do have some hesitancies, because I brought up the fact that I felt like, I felt like there was a bit of a wall in between us a little bit. And not for the present and not for the past, but going forward. And he confirmed that. He did confirm my suspicions, and he told me what his hesitancies were. And it was a little bit mind-boggling to me, because these were all things we could have easily spoken about and discussed and put to bed a long time ago.
Right, but there we go, right? He was not going to verbalize them until
he did not verbalize them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So he did, and he I think he made himself a little more vulnerable than he likes to, and he put them out there, and we talked about them, and I think they were put to rest really quickly, actually. So it was a little frustrating for me, because I'm like, here we are all this time. You have these hesitancies based on stuff that's so easily explainable.
Yes.
And some of it, quite frankly, I think we agreed was born from his past experiences. So he might have been a little touchy. And maybe projecting that slightly on me.
Sure.
But again, okay, let's talk. From a female perspective, I'm like, why didn't you just say something 3 months ago? I know,
right? Oh, my gosh.
But I think he felt the need to stay in observation mode and find out for himself is, I think, what it was.
I absolutely agree. Yep. And that's, again, that is what, men do. That's just very, very male. Yep.
Right. I mean, I kind of get it. I'm a little scientifically brained. And it's like, anybody can say anything. Seeing it for yourself is different. Yeah. So I get it, but I was still a little disenchanted with how it went down, but fine. It's behind us. So then moving forward, we still had this thing looming. Okay, if you relocate, what does that mean for us? So I had to have that conversation with him, because quite honestly, it was eating away at me. Yeah. And that's not like me. I've never felt this way in a relationship. I never considered myself to be, I just never felt this way in a relationship where I was wondering so much. I always felt myself to be kind of confident and knew where I stood. And I didn't feel like I knew where we stood. Right. So I asked him, and his response was, I want you in my life. I want you to come with me. I'm not ready for engagement.
I remember. Yep.
And I went, okay, well, I'm not coming with you without engagement. I did not say this to him.
Right.
But it's certainly what I was thinking. I thought, impasse. We're at an impasse.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to you, and I think I told you that I was kind of ruminating, which is very much unlike myself. This is not a habit of mine at all or anything I've ever done in the past that was super uncomfortable. And I was kind of ruminating because it was bothering me. And I know where I stand with myself when I'm on my own. I didn't want to be in a relationship where I was constantly questioning it, and I was tired of questioning it.
Right.
So that's when I think I hit a wall.
Yep.
And I said to you, this isn't good for me anymore. This isn't going to work any longer. I need to know where I stand. And if he's willing or wanting to go without me, that's fine. But I'm not going to be his insert the city where we live name girl until he leaves.
Right.
And you were like,
is that when we instituted the my leave him to lure him strategy?
Well, we never really fully did the leave him to lure him because I said I wasn't willing to lure him. I said, if you leave, I'm done.
Right, but that's
kind of. Yeah, it's where we talked about the next talk that was going to happen because I felt there had to be a talk, and I definitely needed some guidance in terms of how to move forward with that talk. Mm-hmm. And you guided me beautifully. So you were my GPS that day, for certain, pun intended. And and you were. And that's when he came over that day, and that's when I told you, I said, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I packed his stuff that was here. And you told me kind of how to go about that when he came over, and I had told him I'd leave it outside because neither one of us we're not confrontational people. Mm-hmm. And it was hurtful, and it's not what I wanted, but I felt it was what I needed. Mm-hmm. And he came over, and you had walked me through it on the phone, kind of how to approach him and what to say, and gave me some really great ideas because we know that I'm a bit alpha, and softness does not necessarily come naturally to me and all. I mean, we've never argued, we've never had a fight, but that soft, feminine kind of really nurturing, kind of loving, doting, embracing kind of part of me is not as present as it should be, I suppose. So I tend to be a tad bit pragmatic. He's highly pragmatic. Mm-hmm. So I learned from you that when we use sexy mother, and when we really show that soft side, which I can have, but not necessarily when we're at odds, that it really, it works beautifully. It really does. It really does. Yeah. Beautifully, and it changes the dynamic like 180.
Yes.
So he came over and had his stuff packed, and you made sure that it was front and center so he could see it.
Yeah, so he could see it right away. Yep.
Yeah. And he knew it was packed. I had told him. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, I won't talk if you don't want to talk. I don't want to hurt you. He said, so if it's going to hurt you to talk, I can just take my things and go. Mm-hmm. But it's up to you. And he sat opposite from me rather than near me, which was fine. And I said, no, we can talk. And I said, whatever you'd like to say. And he just said, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I want. This is what you've decided. And this is never what I wanted. And I think we want the same things. I think we're just a little bit, not so much aligned with our timelines. Mm-hmm. And I said to him exactly what you said, and you made a point of saying, do not make it about him whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't going. And, I don't think I would have, but it was definitely good to have that in my head.
Right.
And make it about the situation and be soft. So I give myself an A+, Paula, because of you.
I know. You did so well.
But I did articulate and was emotional, which you said was the bonus plan. Not on purpose because it was genuine, but I told him, this is not what I want. This is not how I hoped things would go. But we are where we are. We're at an impasse. You might be relocating. I'm not willing to get without a commitment, and I just don't know what else to do at this point. I just don't know, but I can't be feeling the angst I've been feeling. And he apologized profusely, said, I never wanted you to be uncomfortable or feel this way, and I'm so sorry, and why didn't you come to me sooner? But the truth was I had come to him sooner.
I know. That's just so shocking. It's so shocking because you had been saying these things for, I don't know, quite a while, like hinting at it at least, and then overtly saying it a number of times. So that's shocking. So I want to get to the rest of the story because it's so great. Yeah. But hold on, we'll be back in 1 second.
I trust you're enjoying Make Him Wonder and that you're getting a lot of helpful information for the love life you desire and deserve. So if you're not part of the 80/20 Wonder Club, you need to be. The 80/20 Wonder Club is a Make Him Wonder membership that gives you all of Season 1 in a categorized list by age and relationship status, my foundational principles in video, and a multimedia library of my content, including my book, relationship evals, and much more. The best part is that you'll have access to all episodes of Season 2 the moment they're ready. Otherwise, you'll only be getting Season 2 on your listening platform once every 8 weeks or so. Don't miss out. Join the 80/20 Wonder Club by going to the 8020wonder.club. That's the 8020wonder.club. Be consistently and successfully mindful of the best ways to make your man wonder by becoming a member of the 80/20 Wonder Club. It's just 80 cents for the first month. That's the 8020wonder.club. And I'll see you in the clubhouse.
Okay, so Norah, tell us what so you're sitting there, his stuff is packed. He comes over, and I remember him being, it happened really quickly because I know he wanted to have that conversation with you. He was very, I feel that he was very upset. Did you feel the upset coming from him as well? In the male fashion?
I'm not sure if I'd call it upset. I'm not sure if I'd say he was upset. He doesn't upset. I'm not sure he upsets at all, but I could tell he was nervous. Nervous, yeah,
it's a better word. Yeah.
He was nervous. Yeah, he was uncomfortable, and this was not going how he wanted it to go, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I kind of told him that, and I just said, I basically walked through in my head the script that we had talked about, put it into my words, and expressed it, and told him, I'm really sorry, and I'm sorry the timing didn't work out, and this is not, I thought what we had was incredibly special, and he said it is special. It wasn't, it was, it is, and it should be, and then he stood up and walked around, and I could tell he was kind of in deep thought, and then he said, I'm not losing you. I'm not losing you. No, This is not how this is going to go.
Wow.
And I said, well, I don't know how we can make it work. We're at an impasse.
Because you were specific about, I'm not going to move without being engaged.
Correct.
Right? I mean, taking it down to brass tacks, that's really what it was. I'm not going to move forward with you and have a long distance relationship or move with you either way without being engaged.
Correct. Yeah. And he had kind of tried to push that boundary a little bit a couple times, and then he tried to get me to live with him locally, and I think he finally realized she's not budging.
Right.
So and I wasn't. So I said to him, well, if you seem uncertain about what you want right now, and if you don't know, that's okay. That's okay. I don't want to make you feel any way that you don't genuinely feel, and I'm okay with that, and it makes me sad, but it is what it is, and I'm accepting of it, and I wish you all the best, whether we're together or not. I want the best for you. And he said, no, we're going to be together. And he said, I already know what I want. I've always known what I wanted. Now, this came on the heels of him expressing that he had hesitancies about moving forward not that long before this. So I was thoroughly confused now. So I said, okay, what about the other day when you said X, Y, and Z? And he said, no, that doesn't matter. We've talked about it. It doesn't matter. And what I felt was happening was, I don't want to say it was cornered because I never intended to corner anybody.
Right,
but
right.
I felt like he felt like I was slipping through his fingers. And
that's right.
And that's not what he wanted, and it wasn't on his terms. And I think he's very accustomed to having things on his terms.
Right.
And like you said, you called me a worthy opponent.
That's right.
And you said he's not had a worthy opponent before.
Did you actually use that term?
No, you did.
Right. That is my term. And,
that's your term.
And for anybody who doesn't know, it's that a man, to hold you in high value, which that's what you were doing, Norah. You were saying, these are my terms in terms of, who I am and what I can offer and do. But I won't acquiesce. I won't ever be pushed off of that stance because I firmly know what I know. And for men, that shows being a worthy opponent. What I mean by worthy opponent is that because sports come from the mind of males, and if you think about anything in terms of men, there are 3 C's of men. They're about challenge, competition, and conquering. That they need a worthy opponent to achieve and to feel powerful in their decisions as well. Because if the Patriots play a high school football team and they win, it means nothing to the Patriots because that high school football team is not a worthy opponent. So it doesn't mean anything to them. So when they win, the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl because it's the 2 best teams, the 2 worthiest opponents, right? And that's why the championship for that team is so profound. If it's not them, it's not a worthy opponent. If it's a high school football team, it means nothing to them to win the trophy or the pennant or whatever the team's thing is that they win, right? So you were that by having that high value stance, and that it's not pushing him to do anything, it's just staying on your stance. That's why I was saying, don't make it about him and what he's not doing or anything about that. It's just what you need. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So profound. Mm-hmm. So profound.
And that's what happened. And it did throw him off tilt a little bit. And, you had said, well, he'll come back in this many days. And my response was, hey, I'm not going to be interested. And I'm not saying that's the correct response. But for me, it was, he has a lot going on in this time. And we've gone through a lot. And we were are very close. So he said, I've known what I wanted all the time. I'm not ready to get a ring until I'm basically installed in my permanent position. I know what city that's in, and I've determined that it's a position I'm going to stay in because in his industry with what he does, it does take a little while to find that out.
Right,
so,
and just if you think about this too, for him, and we talked about this, is that because he connects when he gets a ring, an engagement ring, it's going to be a high value ring as well.
Yes.
And he needed to have, and he even talked about that, and you knew that. And so he needed the finances to be in order, very, very male, to present you with a ring that he feels it's concurrent with his values, and also what he sees you as his value to him, and he couldn't think of any other way to come to you with what you need vis-a-vis his feelings and commitment to you, other than getting you this exceedingly expensive ring. That he needed to do a lot of things and have that job to support, right?
Right.
So this was
Right.
the impasse for him.
Right, it was, and he even said, I'm not where I need to be at the moment because he's in a million job searches, and let me get there, and then things will follow. But
Right.
I wasn't comfortable with that any longer. So he essentially said, I know what I want. When I get there, I've known what I wanted. I want you in my future. I want my future to be our future.
Right.
And then he made the comment, which he's made before, we talked about, that he is no less committed to me than anyone is to a woman who has already bought her a ring.
Right.
To which you gave me a beautiful response.
I did? Okay, great. What was it?
It was, well, I'm a girl, and, to me it does mean something, and I can look at it every day and think of us and think of you, and I don't have that. So I understand why it doesn't mean anything more to you, but it does mean a lot more to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And his eyes kind of opened.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
And it was a bit of an aha moment. And he said to me, "No, what? That makes sense to me. I understand that. I understand why you would say that."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "So I believe you and your words. I know you to be an honest person, a person of integrity, but that ring is so symbolic to me because I'm just a girl, and that ring means so much."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I understand." He said, "I understand." So then he said to me, he basically explained that he had every intention once he got situated to get the ring and get me there.
Exactly.
And which, of course, he hadn't articulated before.
Right.
And, well, I mean, yes and no. He kind of had. He kind of had at times, but we never had a full throttle, this is what we're going to do conversation.
Right. Right.
It was kind of bits and pieces.
Right.
So I said, okay. I said, that's great, but in the meanwhile, I don't have the security I need. I don't have the security I need between now and then.
Right.
And you have a plan, but it's not comfortable for me. Mm-hmm. And he said, he got up, he walked again, he paced again, and he said, short of getting that final ring, which he said, I do and I want to get when X, Y, and Z fall into place, as we've spoken about, he said, I will do anything. What do I need to do? Mm-hmm. And that's when the conversation I had with you, came into play, which you suggested a pre-engagement ring, only if the conversation went that way.
Exactly.
So that's when that popped into my head. And and he said, what do I need to do? He said, short of getting an X dollar ring, which, like you said, is he has his mind set on a very expensive ring. Right. And he said, so short of doing that, what do I need to do? I'm not losing you. Mm-hmm. And that's when I brought up, I said, well, I need to know there is some level of commitment beyond what we have now, and something to symbolize that commitment beyond just words. And how do you feel about kind of an interim pre-engagement ring so that I can have what I need to have and you can have what you want? And he sat down and he said, I think that's a great idea. He said, absolutely. He said, I think that's a great idea. If that will make you happy, it makes me happy. He said, and he was so funny because he had to fly out that night for business. He was like here having this conversation, really needing to get to the airport. And he had to fly out for business. And he said to me, he said, oh, gosh, I need to fly out, so I'm not going to be back until X day. Can it wait that long? And we were talking about 3 days away. And he's like, can it wait that long? And I said, of course. I mean, you have to do what you have to do, and it can wait that long. So he got back, and he said, I'm so glad we worked it out. He said, we want the same things. He said, do know that we want the same things. I am completely on board. Just let me get where I need to go, please. And if this will solve that in the interim, he said, I am no less committed to you than any man that's given someone a ring. He said, I promise you, and now we have a solution. So when he came back, he had made the plans for the next day to go shopping for a ring, and I ended up getting sick, so that had to be put off. But he was all prepared and kind of had mapped out the plan, and did explain that it wouldn't be of the same caliber of the next ring, which was fine. And he said it's the symbolism of it. It's not the monetary value, it's the symbolism of it.
That's right.
So I'd look. So then he made. He said, "What?"
You know what it is he's solidifying his decision, and that's what is so profound for the man. And again, going back to the sports, that decision is like getting on the team, accepting the jersey, getting your locker, putting on the equipment. It is formalized, right? That decision. Right. And then the symbol of that decision is like wearing the team colors, right? Wearing that jersey. Right. And that's what it is. That's what's needed for the man, is that decision, because once that decision is made, they've accepted the responsibility. They see commitment as being, and that's what's so profound for it. So this pre-engagement ring, because he wants to get a very expensive one when he has that particular job, is no less meaningful than the expensive ring that he will be getting, because he's already made the decision and formalized it. So now we're at the...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's hard as a female, because it's not that he doesn't have the wherewithal to do it. You know, this is but so it's not like I need this job so I can afford it. You and I both know that's not the situation. Right. But he needs that stability, and it's like your book says, he needs all his kind of ducks in a row and these variables met, and not so many balls up in the air, so he feels comfortable. As he said, I need to be where I am comfortable and happy to take on an engagement.
And that's so, it's just a very interesting fact, and it's going to vary with man to man. And that's why, and you're in my program, so you hear me talk to different people, that it's, there's not one size fits all in this realm, because another man would be comfortable with giving you it could be two scenarios. So, for example, even with the assets we know that he has, he could be comfortable, because maybe he's not a jewelry guy or whatever. He could be comfortable getting you a $5,000 ring, right? Or he could actually spend the money he really wants to spend, the $30,000 or so that he wants to spend on a ring. He could be comfortable pulling that from his assets, but that's not him. It's just not him. And because of the need to be taking on the commitment he sees it as being, and that means to be able to take on the responsibility, he doesn't want to spend that $30,000 now until he has the new job. And that's him. He's being exceedingly responsible about it, right? But that doesn't change his feelings. And this ring solidifies the decision and makes him comfortable where his finances are. Where another guy could be absolutely comfortable saying, you know what, I'll throw caution to the wind. I'm going to get the other job. I'm going to go ahead and pull out of my savings the $30K and buy the ring. He's not that. And that's okay. So that's why we came up with the idea about the symbolism to solidify his decision-making in a formalized way, because it must be in a public, formal way for the knowledge that his decision really is where it needs to be. And so we found that out. So
I think it's important that he didn't. I don't think it was the money for the other ring. He made it clear how much he wanted to spend, which, and I told you he doesn't need to spend that much. And he said, he spends what he feels he needs to spend.
Yes, that's
you don't get to tell him. And I mean, not that any woman wouldn't love a ring like that, probably. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it wasn't. I mean, he has the money to get that one. Now, I don't think he had the stability he was comfortable with.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, for him, it's not. So, yeah. Yep. So I want to jump to, if you don't mind, I want to jump to now, because we're time is like coming to a close. That I want to jump to the question that you wanted answered, which was, now you've got that ring. And things
it's coming tomorrow. It'll be ready tomorrow, but he'll be in town on Friday, so the unveiling will be on Friday.
Okay, great. Now, I want you to tell the cute scenario about what happened with the stuff that was in the boxes. And it's been, about 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How long has it been since you had that conversation?
It's been about 3.5 weeks, I think.
Oh, okay. So the boxes are still there.
The boxes are still here.
Okay. Okay. So, and he has seen them sitting there, and what's happening with that you wanted to
Well, when he's here and he needs something, he dips into them and takes it out. And I've boxes sitting in my living room that I really don't want in my living room, and then there's one in the master bath as well with toiletries. And so he went to get something from one of the boxes once, and I said, why don't you bring that in the master bathroom? Here there's cologne and shaving stuff and whatever in the living room. And he said, well, you packed the boxes. I think you should unpack them.
A little power play.
I mean, he was joking, but little power play, And I said, well, your decisions caused me to pack the boxes, so I think you should unpack them.
See, we're the opponent.
And he laughed. He did a laugh, and he said, gosh, I'm not sure I can win. And he said, but I'm not unpacking.
He used a sports term. I'm not sure I can win.
But he said, but I'm not unpacking.
Okay.
So, and he just looked at me and smiled. And I said, I don't want boxes in my living room. And he said, then unpack them.
Okay.
And I said, not going to happen. And I walked away.
Okay.
So the boxes are sitting there. So I asked you, what do I do with these boxes?
Right. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. What do you do with the boxes? So here's the thing. You want to, and here's a really good point I want to make for all women, that because men live via their decisions, they admire, respect, and want to see that in us. And unfortunately, because we live via our emotions, it confounds them a lot of times, because we'll say something out of our emotions and then not stick with it. And the reason this is working for you is because you have stuck and had your actions follow your words. So you made decisions, you said them, and you've stuck with them. That is profoundly meaningful for men and what they desire in women. Although they love us to be feminine and soft and have female energy coming towards them, they still want and desire the, you'll hear a lot of, we hear in our vernacular, no drama. What that means when men say, I don't want any drama, that means they want women's words to accompany their actions and be the same. And so here you have what this little thing is with the boxes is a great example of that. And it's a great example of you being that worthy opponent, because your words are aligning with your actions. And although he's come forward with this ring and the decision, and we know that's there, you don't have the ring on your finger yet. And now this is just kind of small and symbolic, but it's a fun way to do this. So my idea for you in this instance is, again, just action. And there are not going to be any more words with it. So, for example, the ring comes Friday. When are you seeing him again? This weekend?
Well, he has a 3-hour layover back in town on Wednesday, and he was actually trying to see if he could make that work to give me the ring then. But it would be crazy. It just would be very difficult. So I think I will see him on Friday.
Oh, you'll see him Friday and you'll have the ring then, right?
It will be in hand, but I cannot touch it, yes.
He told you not to touch it?
He said to
until he can be
there. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's really sweet. Okay, so here's the thing. The boxes are to stay there until, it doesn't matter whether it's this weekend or next week or whatever, until you guys are together. You open the ring. He presents it to you, right? He is to open it, touch it, have it in his hand, and put it on your finger, right? We talked about that. So then there is no more discussion about it. Then you, in your time frame, you are just going to go ahead and unload the boxes and put them away.
So not when he's there, though, right?
No, it doesn't. No. Now, if he needs something out of it, you can certainly get it. But you just go about doing it. If he's going to stay, like if he comes on Friday and you do the boxes then, you have your night together. If say he's going to be there over the weekend, let's say for hypothetical sake, he was going to stay Saturday, Sunday, and leave Monday morning. You can go about doing them as you wish, and he can see you just doing it. In other words, if you want to go ahead and do the entire boxes and put them away, you can do that. Right. No discussion more about it. But he'll probably, if he sees you, say, you're putting away the boxes. Just smile, look at him. Love you, honey. That's it. No more said. Action.
Got it.
Feminine energy. You just do it. It will make him feel like king of the mountain, right? And no more discussion. And that's it.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that feel good?
I'll be glad to get them away.
Yeah. Great.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
so thank you so much for doing this today. I'm so excited for you. I mean, we got this from 0 up to 60 in a matter of, 6 weeks or so. And
yes, we have.
You are now engaged, and I'm so happy for you and can't wait to hear the rest of the journey to your wedding day.
Thank you, and thank you so much for all your help.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Norah. And if you've benefited today, connect with me on social media, connect with me in any way, get my book, Why Will He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One, and share the podcast. And if you are with a man, you want to make sure that you're making him wonder. Until next time, everybody. Bye now.
I trust you got a lot of good information from today's episode. So go to makehimwonder.com. There you can take my free relationship evaluations. You can learn how to talk to me privately or as a guest on the Make Him Wonder podcast, and how you can join the 80/20 Wonder Club, an exclusive club where you will get episodes you won't find anywhere else. So that you always remember to make your Mr. Right wonder, go right now to makehimwonder.com.